So in a previous video, I explained the pragmatic argument for God's existence. In this video, I want to explain the pragmatic argument for the restored gospel, colloquially known as Mormonism. Now, just in talking about the notion of the restored gospel, you are talking about something within a Christian context. In other words, Mormonism, so-called, presupposes the basic truth that the Jesus of the New Testament rose from the dead as the Savior of the world. And without at least that basic notion in place, Mormonism is not only irrelevant, but absurd. However, to anyone who has placed their faith in Jesus' resurrection, they are left with the perplexing problem of what to make of that. In other words, when you arrive at a faith in Jesus, you are left wondering, well, what next? Where do I go now? And there are all sorts of people ready and willing to try and answer that question. This is the problem facing everyone who has placed their faith in Jesus Christ. You simply can't have a meaningful faith in Jesus Christ without grappling with the conflicting theories about who he was, what he taught, and what he expects of us. This is the world of comparative Christianity. It's the world where so-called Mormonism begins to speak and make its unique claims. So this video is for Christians. And by that, I mean people who, at the very least, affirm that Jesus was fundamentally who the New Testament claims he was. And anyone who considers themselves a Christian are immediately confronted with a variety of different churches, doctrines, and denominations, and the question arises, is there a true church? Now, for the sake of this video, the true church means the church which the risen Lord would want all of his followers to be part of. And there are only three possibilities. The first option is that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is the true church. The second option is that some other church is the true church. And the third option is that there is no true church. And this is essentially any option that is not one or two. Now, as a Latter-day Saint, when I consider these options, I am reminded of Pascal's wager. I find that if option one is true, I am relieved, and I'm happy that I'm in the right place. Now, as for option two, I am 100% open to this being the case. And frankly, if there is something better and more true that I should place my faith in, I want to know about it. I have always loved what Brigham Young said. He said, quote, "It is our duty and calling to gather every item of truth and reject every error, whether that truth be found with professed infidels or with the Universalists or the Church of Rome or the Methodists, the Church of England, the Presbyterians, the Baptists, the Quakers, the Shakers, or any other of the various and numerous different sects and parties." I spent 2 years of my life asking others to listen to me tell them about where my faith has been placed, and to ask God if my message was true. And I stand fully ready to do that same thing for others who wish to come knocking at my door. But what about option three? This one is different. You see, if there is no true church, then what church I am a part of is ultimately, in the final analysis, just a matter of personal preference. So if I prefer the restored gospel to any other Christian denomination, then I guess staying makes perfect sense. And perhaps the more theologically liberal would accept this view. However, it becomes really weird when in one breath people say that there is no true church, but also then hold the idea that Latter-day Saints will end up in hell unless they accept a Trinitarian theology. What they don't realize is that they are setting up a true church. The true church are the people who assent to, at the very least, certain theological minimums, and anyone outside of that minimum set of theological beliefs is not part of the true church and bound for hell. So which is it? Is there a true church? Or am I fine staying with the religion I prefer? Is Jesus really that concerned with your theology? Or are good people from all churches going to be saved? thus making the thing of ultimate concern not theology, but if someone is a good person. Obviously, this is a highly debated topic among Christians, but the logic is inescapable for a Christian. There are only three options. Now, realizing there are logically only a few options for a genuine seeker of the New Testament Jesus, all of them also fit into an additional set of categories. So among Latter-day Saints, you have things like this. The first is a believing Latter-day Saint. And these are those who believe that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is indeed the true church. The second are LDS by preference. These are people who believe that there is no such thing as a true church, but prefer the restored gospel over other Christian denominations. There may be many people in your church on Sunday in a Latter-day Saint congregation who don't really believe that the church is the true church. They just think that it's a good church. The third category I'd propose is what I like to call an unhappy Mormon. These are people who don't believe there is a true church, and they don't even really like the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but they stay for other reasons, like, for instance, maybe trying to change the church. Now, as you move outside of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, there are two additional categories. One of them is what I call the non-Latter-day Saint Christian. These are those who believe another Christian faith is the true church. For instance, Catholics fall into this category. And the final category are what I like to call the alternative Christians. These are Christians who don't believe there is a true church, but prefer some other non-LDS Christian church or no church at all. Now, so far as I can tell, all Christians ultimately fall into one of these camps. And just to be clear, I am unashamedly a believing Latter-day Saint. All my life, I have had many, many other Christians tell me there is no true church and that I should not prefer the restored church. However, it would be very difficult for me to prefer another church after all that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has done for me and my family. And after all, if it's only a matter of preference, why do they care if I prefer the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints over another church? If I can be saved while remaining a Latter-day Saint, well then, that is the course that I'm going to pursue. Again, we can go into Pascal's logic here. If being a Latter-day Saint or being a Catholic or being a believing Protestant all can lead me to the same end, then what difference does it make? The only argument that you could make is that the pathway is somehow better outside of the restored gospel. So is that it? Is joining another church just a matter of you thinking that it would be a smoother ride to the same place? And if you really believe that I'm going to hell because of my involvement in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, then shouldn't you be doing everything you can to get me out of it? If I were in a building that was on fire, would you not be screaming and shouting and going crazy trying to get me out of that building? And certainly, dying in a building on fire is a much smaller circumstance than an eternity of torment in hell which awaits me and every other Mormon. But let's be real. Do you really think a just God would send all of your kind and deeply Christ-like Mormon friends to an eternal lake of torturous fire forever, simply because they thought the Trinitarian philosophy did not make sense? Look, you don't believe that. So why can't people like me simply remain as Latter-day Saints if ultimately it can take us to the same place? So I had an interesting experience when I was in high school. I went to a Catholic high school, and I asked one of the Catholic brothers there if I was going to hell for being a Mormon. And he said to me, "Not if you're a good Mormon." I couldn't help but chuckle at what he said. Now, if this all seems a bit confusing, just know that we don't have this problem in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Why? Because God has revealed to the world that heaven is not binary. We believe that your Christianity is actually a great thing. We applaud the work of Christians everywhere who bring people closer to God. And we believe that good Christians everywhere will, through their faith inherit a level of glory beyond their imagination. But we also believe that unless you open your heart to all truth and stop limiting yourself through false creeds, that your full potential will never be realized. You see, when you jettison the binary view of heaven and hell and realize, as the restored gospel teaches, that we are all closer or farther from God in a journey of eternal progression, suddenly a lot of things make more sense. So to my Christian friends, is there a true church? Am I going to hell because I am not part of that church? Is everyone on earth who is not part of that church bound for hell as well? Would you call a God who did that a just God? In the end, I want to invite you to come and see. Come and listen to how the restored gospel deals with these questions. I truly believe that the heavens are still open and God continues to speak, and that He has provided remarkable answers to these questions. If you would like to hear how the restored gospel can help make sense of these issues and many other issues, I have a link in the show notes where you can request a visit with our local missionaries in your area. I promise it'll be worth your while. Hey guys, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that subscribe button so my future videos show up on your feed. Also, if you or someone that you know has benefited from the content here on Thoughtful Faith, please consider becoming a channel donor or volunteer by visiting my new website, thoughtfulfaith.org, and clicking on the Get Involved page.